Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Rich Woman Rising podcast. I'm your host, Eloise Tomkins, and I help you to reprogram your nervous system for wealth so that you can grow and expand your income without burning out. And today, I am so excited because I have one of my favorite photographers in the world. Well, there are a few of them actually, and this is definitely one of them. She is an amazing photography, personal brand photographer, empowerment coach. And today we have with us Ksenia Belova. I was really making sure that I said her name right because we were talking off air about how to say her name. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to get it wrong. But so hopefully I nailed that for you. And I'm really excited to have you on the show to talk about your money journey because I know that for you, there has, like everyone, a money journey. And I know that we've spoken about it off air. And I'm so excited to share that journey with all of the listeners because yours is really cool, really interesting to kind of see how far you've come.
Thank you, Eloise. I'm super excited.
Can you
Let's.
tell us a little bit about yourself and, a little bit about who you are and what you do for the people who might not know you?
So in short, I am Russian. I am coming from Moscow. I lived in Italy for 12 years, and now I've been in Australia for 13 years. And I've completely changed my career because I used to work in marketing in corporate back in Italy. And when I moved to Australia, I decided to give a twist and run my own business. And so now I'm in my happy space. And it's been 12 years that I've been a photographer, 6 years specifically a personal branding photographer. So very niche. I work with females mostly, like 90%, and females in purpose-driven businesses because I really love that connection with women in general. I love hearing their stories and I love empowering them and help them to succeed in their business. So that's in a nutshell.
That is in a very broad nutshell. And I love how that evolution has kind of happened throughout the years. And we're going to dive more into your story shortly. And I love the empowerment side of things because I think photography can be something where, like, I've done one of your photo shoots and it can be really confronting and particularly for women where there can be a lot of socialization, particularly around our bodies and things like that. So being in that space, I can't word today. Like, when you say a word and you think, am I saying the word right? And then you can't say it. I've just had that with photography. Uh, so to help people kind of step into that confidence and feel empowered is amazing. And, that's kind of what I do with the money side of things is to help women to feel empowered to take up that space to say, hey, I want to make more money. And I wonder if you can help us understand a little bit more about your journey with money, with your relationship with money.
Right. So I would start from where I was born. Because being born in the Soviet Union, in communism, there was a lot of scarcity, a lot of scarcity. So sometimes there was not enough food on the table, and my mom was a single mom when I turned 6 years old. So I could see a lot of struggle, a lot of struggle. And I carried that scarcity mindset and the idea that it's really hard to earn money, that you need to work 3 jobs to make a living, even just to survive. I'm not even talking about abundance. So I've carried that thought
Mm.
probably until 5 years ago. But still, there's a lot of things to work through because it's so ingrained. That conditioning and that thought and that belief is so deep in the cells that for me, it was really hard to shift it, really hard to shift it. But once it was shifted, and now I'm living in the abundance mindset in general, including money, it makes such a big difference because there is no attachment. For me, money now is energy, and I love receiving it. I love paying. So I love giving money and I love receiving it. So it's that energy exchange for me. It's not just the materialistic thing. And for me, money is freedom, is choices. Because the
Mm.
more money I have, the more choices I have. and the more I can give back as well. So it's a total shift. It's not just now the survival mode. Okay, how can I make money to feed myself,
Mm.
or, just to pay for basic needs? Now it's like, okay, like how can I manifest more? What else can I do with that money?
That's so amazing. And I love the shift because I think for a lot of listeners out there, they can have this sense of it's not possible for me to actually change. And I wonder, like, is that something that you ever thought? And I know we've spoken about this off air, where there's been this kind of difficulty kind of remembering the past because those changes happen at such a deep, like you said, cellular level. Sometimes it can be really hard to look back and reflect on what was. And I know that's kind of what I'm asking you to do a little bit today is reflect on some of that past. And also that the current reality and that future reality. But I am curious, like, what was that like living in that past state of scarcity? And were you actually able to even see abundance as a possibility? Like, how did that kind of play out?
Awesome question. Um, if I try to tap into the feeling, I can see something very small, like
Mm,
a small ball, and a lot of resistance, even thinking about money. I never wanted to check my bank account, and there was a lot of fear of not having enough, of constantly having lack of. But an interesting thing that it was actually across many areas, other areas of my life. So money was one of the things, but I've actually never connected the lack in general and the scarcity of thinking to everything. I have never connected it because I was not aware. I literally didn't have awareness. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the knowledge, and no one has ever spoken to me about it. Money has always been a taboo. I
mm,
love talking about money now because it's again, it's energy, and we need to talk more about it because it just changes your whole perspective on life. And the feeling that I'm getting now of this abundance, of that heart opening, the possibilities, the opportunities, the bigger picture, I could only see the tunnel, like I had a tunnel vision
mm,
on life. And every time I was spending money, for me, it was like, oh, I don't want to spend it. I've never spent money on myself until I realized that I should be my own priority, and it's an investment in myself. And it was really hard the first time I invested in my personal growth. It was really hard to part with the money, but I just intuitively felt I had to do it to make a change. And since then, since that first investment, now I constantly invest back in myself. I constantly invest in courses, in personal development, in retreats, in basically anything that can help me grow, because there's always room for improvement and always so many things to go deeper and all the layers to unveil.
mm.
Um, yeah, so I'm not sure if I've answered your question.
Oh, I think we always go down rabbit holes, and I'm so here for it. Half the time, like I get so invested in a rabbit hole that I don't even remember the original question. So you are so fine. I love that. And I love that the thing that stood out to me was the tunnel vision. And what I hear that, and because when you are in that survival mode you are so focused on, okay, what do I need to just kind of get through, how do I get by day to day? And I mean, coming from an upbringing where there wasn't enough food on the not enough money to put food on the table, that is survival mode, because you need food to survive. So, and then you associate money with food because money is what buys the food. Of course, it all links together. And I think what a lot of us really don't understand is how significant the childhood experiences we have impact us in our adulthood. And I love when my clients have these light bulb moments of, oh, I have connected the dots. I can see the patterns now. And it's funny because I can see the patterns so clearly sometimes. And it's like putting the little constellation together and I'm like, I can see it. And I just wait for that light bulb to go off in their mind as well. And sometimes it takes a while, sometimes it's pretty quick, but that awareness piece is so powerful. And what I can't help but wonder is, because I know for myself, there was a moment where I was like, I cannot keep doing this anymore. I did not know what it would look like. And at that point in time, it wasn't even about money. It was more about life. Because like you said, money, it's not just scarcity and money, it's scarcity more broadly. And when my clients work with me, they'll often say, oh my goodness, I did not realize that it was not just about money. And so I guess I'm curious, what was your point where you were like, I can't keep doing this anymore?
Mm, I think my rock bottom was when I was going through my divorce 6 years ago. And I've realized that I have completely lost myself in my marriage. And that was the turning point because I I was sitting in the living room by myself. I'm like, oh my God, who am I? What am I doing now? Because I've lost that identity of being a wife. And that was really hard to let go of. And I think that was that moment when I'm like, okay, Ksenia, there's something like, why do you need to even question yourself? Why do you need to put your identity and associate it with someone else? Like you are a whole independent person by yourself.
Mm.
So what is there? So this is how kind of it started to click. And yeah, I had like that epiphany moment of, yeah, like this is not who I am, but who am I?
Mm.
Which was a hard question to answer. I went in a bit of a depression, but it was a good moment of reflection. Like I would probably call it more reflection than depression. It was just a lot of questioning. And since then, I started to question everything, the way I think, the way I do things, the way I behave. Um, yeah, so I am very grateful to my divorce because without it, I wouldn't be here right now talking to you and, being at peace with myself.
It's so funny, isn't it? Because I think a lot of, and I see this with my clients. So well, more so like when I was working in this therapy space, where my clients would, they would come and they would want something to change. And yet what you kind of said was this identity piece. And when they kind of realize that there is that opportunity for a different path, it could feel a lot. It could feel like a lot. And because then you start to realize I actually have a choice here. And like you said, you start to question, well, and because the exact same thing kind of happened to me in a very different way, but it was that questioning, whose identity have I been operating from? And that was, holy moly, super confronting.
Yeah.
Uh, because I think we tend to operate from society's framework that has kind of been embedded from our uh, childhood experiences, the way that we were raised, community, like in terms of for you, like growing up in Russia, right? Like the cultural influences and all of these experiences that we have, obviously they're going to influence how we then develop our thoughts, beliefs, and experiences. But the thing that happens is they become so, again, I love the way that you described it, like in that cellular level, so embedded that it just becomes our normal.
Yeah, I was just about to say that you almost feel that it's your safety spot.
Yeah.
You have some certain identity, whatever identity
Mm,
it is, it's that clarity. But when you start questioning, and you're like, oh, it's so confronting, because you like losing that sense of identity and choosing to find another one. It takes time, and it's
mm,
painful, because you have to unlearn so much. You have
mm,
to detach yourself from so many things and so many beliefs, detach and let go of. And that's hard, because you don't know how it looks like. So there is absolutely no
mm.
certainty. And that's scary, because again, you don't know what's out there. But it's also very exciting, because you don't know what's out there.
Yeah, it's so true, right? Like you don't know what's out there. And you could go down this garden path and like who knows what it's going to look like. You're hoping that it's going to be something different. Do you know the funny thing is though, I have never met someone who has gone down this journey and this pathway and said, yeah, I hate it. I wish I never did it."
And,
I have met people though, I've actually pretty much everyone has said it's hard. It hasn't been easy. That absolutely comes out. And it's also worth it, they say, because the alternative is that you keep going down that same familiar, comfortable, easy, air quotes, path that you know and that you don't question, that you don't reflect on, that you don't look at. You know the outcome, you know where you're going to end up.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
which hard do you choose? And I kind of hate that because, sometimes it's just about your nervous system feeling like it can be really difficult to make those shifts. And
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. On a flip note, I think the first time is the hardest, and especially when you're in it, because I always have this visual of being in the middle of the hurricane, and there's so much mess and everything is twirling, and
mm,
you don't see anything. It's all dust and
mm,
pieces of furniture.
yeah, I've got like what's that
Yeah.
movie? Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But once it settles down, you can start cleaning up, but you can see the horizon. And then when you do it again and again and again, you already have evidence of the first time and then the second time. So it becomes easier. So
Yep.
for anyone who is listening and going through stuff, it does become easier, because then
Mm.
it becomes your habit to actually shift the things quicker. The
Those neural
time
pathways
frame.
have, for
Yeah.
sure, those neural
Yeah, you're
pathways have
creating
been.
exactly, and you could talk about that, how actually our brain works in terms of the pathways, because it's so fascinating. Because I think
I find it
understanding,
fascinating.
I think it's like even understanding how it works in practical biological level, it helps you going through things, because it's not just the
Mm.
theory, it's not just like, yeah, it's all energy and things, but it's like, it's actually tangible.
It's science, like it is. It is
Yeah,
tangible. You can see, like when they do brain imaging and things like that, you can see the shifts in the brain. And when we are operating from that fight, flight, survival mode, like there are parts of our brain that kind of shut down because we are, and other parts that are activated, like our amygdala becomes really activated because that is the part of the brain that's telling us to survive. When we can kind of slow that down, then yeah, we do have the capacity to switch on other parts of our brain that allow us to think more clearly. When we can do that, our creativity comes back and we can start to create those new pathways, which means that paves our way to abundance because we're not trapped in our brain and body thinking that we're in that survival mode anymore. And I know for you, there's been a lot around, I mean, obviously money, because that's kind of what we're speaking to. How did that, what have you tried to kind of shift your scarcity mindset to abundance?
um
Where
well,
did
the
it start?
the biggest thing and the biggest moment that really helped me was when I did my NLP practitioner and NLP masters during lockdowns. That completely reset my brain and completely reprogrammed my brain. Let's put it this way: reset, reprogrammed. Because from that moment, so the root cause for me, that this is what came out of the NLP course, was that I was not enough. I was not feeling enough for myself. I didn't realize that, obviously, because who thinks, yeah, I'm not enough? Like, you don't talk like this. I was like, what does it even mean? So I didn't feel all of my life, subconsciously, not consciously, I did not feel that I was deserving of having a successful career, a great relationship, earning good money, just being, in a beautiful place, living freely. So that belief that I've carried all of my life, that I'm not enough and I don't deserve this, it blocked me from receiving that abundance.
How
So
did that show up? Because I guess what I'm curious about, like, I totally get it. And for me, it makes so much sense. And I can see the links and connect all those little, stars in the constellation. I guess what I'm super curious about is because I bet that there's people listening out there who will have this same block. It is a very common subconscious block. How did you kind of get to that layer? Like, how did you actually, because what I guess I'm wondering is what was happening day to day, and how did the day to day stuff reflect that I'm not enough if you weren't consciously aware of that I'm not enough belief?
I did not want to receive in any areas of my
Mm,
life. So in terms of business, for example, I was undercharging myself because I felt that no one will pay me for my
mm,
services, that my work is not good enough, that I felt guilty to charge for something that I loved doing.
mm,
So and people were telling me, like, we want to pay you whatever you ask. And I had this resistance of like, yeah, I'll just ask a little bit because, and then I thought I was getting in their heads, no, because they can't afford it. So
mm,
none of my business. Like, basically,
mm,
I was thinking everything. So this is in terms of business.
mm,
And it was like this for many years. And I had several jobs that I was doing in the meanwhile because I didn't have enough money, that I was not making enough money with photography. And those jobs kept me safe because
mm,
it was like temp jobs, very kind of easygoing. Like, I didn't have to use my brain that much.
mm,
So it was all coming from the feeling that I'll never make it anyway. So why even try? So I was
mm.
doing a little bit here, a little bit there, but I've never put all my energy into my business because I never believed that I could make it and I could become successful.
How did that become, because I imagine again people might be really resonating with that, because I think they're the things that we can see. And we can see, oh, I'm not charging enough. People are telling me that I'm not offering my services at a decent level. These are all things that we can see. They're tangible. That I'm not enough is not tangible. It's a very intangible concept in a lot of ways, until we start to kind of unpack it and explore it. And then we can, I don't know, like really start to pull that out in the body and start to feel it and start to be able to then name, oh, okay, well, this is a behavior that I'm doing because of this really deep-seated belief that I have that is leading me to feel a particular way. And when we kind of pull all of those pieces of the puzzle together, it becomes really clear. I don't know what my question was there so much, but
But while you were talking, what came to my mind was now I can identify it. I was not able to identify that feeling beforehand because, again, I was not aware that it was even supposed to feel somewhere. Like, I had no idea. Now, because I'm very aligned with myself, I'm very in tune with myself and in tune, especially with my body.
mm,
I can recognize the feeling when it comes from time to time of that self-doubt. Like I get it in just above my gut, like under the rib cage.
mm,
It's that resistance and fear that this is how I am more putting words into it. And then I'm like, okay, well, what's going on here? Where is it coming from? So
mm,
I'm coaching myself on, is it just the overthinking? Is it the old pattern? Is it your thought? Is it someone else's thought? Is it someone else's belief? So it's like, it's a very, very quick process now,
mm.
but being able to identify it is so powerful because then you shift it in no, like in like very quickly, very
rather
quickly.
than rather than kind of getting hooked into it. Well, not even knowing that you're hooked into it, because and I relate to that, like in that sense of autopilot, which I think is kind of what we were speaking to before. Your normal is just your normal until you make a choice and look at things or choose to look at things differently. And as women, we are very disconnected from our bodies. Like that is something that I have observed time and time and time again, myself included. And being able to reconnect and tune in is, I think, the most powerful thing that you can do for all areas of your life, including building wealth. Because when you can tune into what your body is doing and saying, like you said, you can identify, hang on a minute, is this actually my belief? Or am I carrying it from someone else? And I've been doing a lot of energy work recently. Like, I mean, I see energy work and nervous system work as hand in hand in and so much overlap. I find it really difficult to kind of tease out the two. But the ability to be able to identify what is your energy and what's going on for you, and does it actually belong to you or was it given to you by someone else, is so powerful. And interestingly, I've just kind of had this thought. Someone was sharing, one of my mentors was sharing with me the other day that we develop our nervous system, we develop our energy source in utero. It is handed down to us. So all of this control that we think we have over our choices and decisions, it is already coded into our DNA long before we are born. So the fact that we're even choosing to explore these deep-seated patterns, I think is a massive testament to wanting to change those patterns that have been in our families for generations.
Generation, I was just about to say it's so much earlier, like because I see it because I'm just now observing patterns and I can see it in my mom. And I talk to my mom about it, and she's like, "Oh yeah, this is what your grandmother used to do." And I remember that moment um, when we used to give gifts to my grandma, like for birthday, for Christmas, New Year's,
Mm,
and she never opens them. She opened them, but she's like, "Oh, that's such a pretty shirt or pretty socks. I will keep it for the better days."
mm,
She never used them, and then she passed away. And then we found all those gifts still wrapped up, still in the boxes
mm,
in the cupboard. And that really stuck in my head
mm,
because this is the way how she used to live because she went through the war. So there's so much generational traumas there through the
mm,
war and scarcity. Like imagine living during the war, right? And fighting for your life and for
mm,
survival. But she lived like this until the last day of her life. And I'm like, I haven't this opportunity because I can see it now, I have this opportunity to change something. Because by
Mhm.
changing that, I'm now influencing in a good way my mom and letting her think differently. Because again, for her, it was a normal. So now
Mm.
she's like, oh, okay, it can be different. So it's giving that different perspective and opportunity to actually make a change, even if it's a small one, but some small changes and big changes happen by making small changes.
Oh, I love that so much. I absolutely so true. Yeah. And like as you were talking, I was thinking it's a gift. Being able to heal your relationship with money is not just a gift for you. It has all of these ripple effects for your mum, but also for other women as well out there. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I want to create that ripple effect for future generations. And, I've spoken with clients who are parents and they're seeing their relationship with money being passed on to their children. And they're like, oh, how do I change that? Like, well, you change it by healing your relationship with money. You can't just talk about money. Like my dad would talk to me about money. Oh, you have to do blah, blah, blah. But he wouldn't do it, and I'm like, that's not how kids learn. So when you change, you're also modeling it for other people. And you're so spot on with small change lasts, like creates that compound effect. And I love seeing it because people sometimes think that change just boop happens overnight.
I wish.
And look, don't get me wrong, like the coaching that I do, like, and the methods that I use, I'm really blessed to have this incredible training where I do get to do this amazing subconscious program reprogramming that does have immediate effects. Like I was talking to one of my clients and she was like, Ellie, I think I've just rewired 50 years worth of money trauma in one session. She's like, what did you do to me? And I was like, magic, my friend. Well, actually, it's not magic, it's science, but so it is really powerful. So, the shifts can happen quickly, but at the end of the day, it does happen step by step by step by step. And then you look back and you go, wow, how far have I come? And I find, I don't know whether you do this, but I see it with my clients, and I'm very big on slowing down and looking back and celebrating, because sometimes they'll be like, but I'm not there yet. And I'm like, okay, great, but look at where you came from. Look at how far you've come. And they're like, oh yeah, I suppose that I'm doing pretty well then. And I'm like, yes, you are. Do you find that sometimes with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Now I have an evidence journal.
Ah, I love that.
The evidence journal. So I put all the evidence of little wins and things that I overcome. So it's not just the wins of, I don't know, getting a new client, or like it's not that, it's more like at a bigger picture, but more, oh, I've had this limited belief and now I don't have it anymore. So that's like evidence, things like this. So I've got this huge list and I go through it sometimes and it just pumps me up because I'm like, whoa, girl,
I
you
love that.
you're smashing it. So I'm like cheering up for myself.
I love that. But that's amazing, right? Like that's so good, because finding these strategies and tools to be able to pump yourself up. Because the thing is, and a lot of us can have this expectation that once we've healed, that's it, we're done. It's like,
Do
okay.
we ever heal
Are
fully?
we Although I'm a psychologist and like I have my own coaching and all of that. And the other day I went to my mentor and I don't know whatever we were talking about. I'm like, I just want to be healed already. And I remember she just looked at me and was like, Ellie, do you think that you like there is a point where you will be healed? And I was like, resigned. Ugh, no. And but then it becomes, like, well, what is there to fix? And it's kind of like, well, maybe you're not broken. Maybe that's an old belief that you've been carrying. And I was like, oh, so I guess what I'm saying is also, even as a psychologist, as a money coach, like there is still my own blocks, because we're human, and throughout the course of our life, as long as we've still got air and as long as we're still breathing, we're still going to be going on this journey. And like you were saying, even though you've done so much work on your relationship with money, fear still kicks in. You still notice it.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, while you were talking about healing and fixing, so I used to think that there was something wrong with me and I need to fix. I
Mm,
parked that completely. I don't use that word at all because again, there is nothing
mm,
wrong with anyone. And I am using the word instead of heal because it feels like there is a wound. It's
mm,
kind of it holds very strong energy. So I like to use instead to use the word growth
mm.
because it's more open,
Expansive.
more expansive. Yes.
Mm,
Because it kind of has the same meaning, like you can apply the same meaning, but energetically, I feel the word growth is
mm.
more powerful, is more empowering.
And it's all about the language that you use. And the more growth and expansion that you experience, the more open that you feel. Like you said, energetically, you're going to put that out there. And when you start to have those shifts, then, like you said, the language will change. What you bring in, what you attract in shifts as well. Like there's all these shifts that happen, and it's really powerful stuff. And I'm curious because I know we've kind of spoken through that scarcity side of things. How did you let some of that go? Like what was it that really helped? I know you've spoken about some of that subconscious rewiring. How did that actually help you?
I had to get rid of a lot of fear because I used to live in fear a lot for everything. A fear for the future, fear for the past, thinking of the past, like it was constant fear. So that was probably the biggest, and shame as well. Shame was a big one for me.
Mm,
Um, Again, on a subconscious level, because it was interesting because I couldn't really relate to anything in particular, but I was carrying this feeling of shame
mm,
that, I mean, do I deserve even to be on this earth? What am I contributing to this world? Like, what's my value in
mm,
all of this? So for some reason I had this shame. And again, some things just come, we live with it without even knowing where they're coming from. And again, I might be carrying it from, I don't know, 3 generations ago. Who knows? Um, and mm, yeah, so fear was big. It was a lot of confronting conversations with myself and acceptance that the way I think is not the way I want to think. Um, and it was hard to get to the acceptance because I didn't know what I didn't know. And to find that other answers for me, that was also hard because
mm,
I could not envision them. I could not feel them yet because I was not ready to step into that version of Ksenia because I was hiding. So behind my scarcity mindset, and I would add also victim mindset, I was hiding behind those stories justifying my behaviors
mm-hmm,
and saying, oh, yeah, I'm like this because I didn't have anything in my life. So you owe me. I felt almost entitled for people.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can relate. Uh,
Uh, yeah, in a way, yeah. I think I
and
can relate really to the like victim mindset. Like as soon
yeah,
as you said that, I was like, oh, I feel called out and it feels uncomfortable. Like I was just noticing my body how uncomfortable it felt to kind of hear you say that and to recognize that within me.
so that I was hiding behind that victim mindset because I was actually gaining something out of it. because it was subconsciously a manipulative tactic, like to be completely, But again, I didn't know that it was that. Obviously, now I can kind of see it. And so it was hard to let go of that because I'm like, oh, if I let go of that, what's my excuse? I won't have an excuse anymore. I will have to step into my power. But do I really want to step into my power? Which, you know,
100%. And
very
like
conflicting.
it is, but it's so like it's there's so much to untangle though, right? Like it's not, this is why I find like money, just the basic mindset work of change your thinking. There's so many moving parts to it. And like there's so much in that. And I hear it and those constellations, I can see it. They're all like flickering above, and I'm like, okay, I can link it all together. And what I kind of hear from that is your behaviors were serving you
Yes.
in a way,
Yeah.
not in the way that expanded you wanted them to, but they were serving you in a way that 6-year-old you living in Russia who didn't have enough food on the table was able to get her needs met. And like I said before, as adults, we underestimate how impactful those early experiences are on our adult development. Our subconscious does not care that we're now an adult. It doesn't care. It doesn't distinguish time. And so we still operate from that mindset. And now it might be that way of viewing it as a victim mindset, because we do get something out of that. We get safety, we get familiarity, we know the outcome, we can keep ourselves safe from the fear that we may experience if we did things differently, because our body and subconscious don't know that we're safe. And I was doing some work with a client this morning around this exact kind of topic. And when we let go of some of that fear, when we let go of some of that shame, your brain, you're able to come out of that tunnel. You can kind of expand your view, but you can't expand what you can see when you're in survival mode. Everything shrinks around you. And so that's
That's
why it's so important
mm.
to do the work, do the regulation of your nervous system, to look at your subconscious, because otherwise you're just going to keep looking in that tunnel.
And now that I'm thinking, I wouldn't be able even to talk about it several years ago, because again, I would feel so much shame, because admitting, like, that's very vulnerable, like admitting that I was in that victim mode. So seeing that problem and actually like saying it out loud, and because I would feel that people would judge me, that it was like, oh no, that's not a cool thing to say, that's
Yeah. Because the shame, right? Like there's and shame, what shame loves? Shame loves secrecy. Shame, the way I kind of describe, and I don't know whether this resonates for you, how I kind of talk about shame and how it feels for me is it likes to hide in the deepest, darkest corners of my soul, in my body. And as soon as I get anywhere near it, it will go and it scurries, it scurries into another corner, into a dark little crevice that you can't get into. And it will stay there, it will wedge itself in, and it doesn't want you to pry it out. But when you do kind of, and there's layers, like sometimes you have to navigate through a few layers before you can get to that little crevice where it's hiding. But when you do, and when you do shine a light on it, it's almost like it dissolves and it's like, oh, I actually didn't have anything to be scared of.
exactly, that's right. So now when I have fear, I'm like, is it the real fear,
Mm,
fear that I need to escape and I need to run for my life? Or is it just some kind of fear and not just feeling uncomfortable because I haven't done it yet? And so I go like, "Ooh, I've got like this." It's like, when you say anxiety and excitement have the same
mm,
like embodiment, it's
mm,
just different connotation that we put to the words, but it's the same thing. So now when I'm feeling that I'm anxious, I'm actually saying, no, I'm actually excited. Like if I have to do something new, and I don't have evidence of that yet, I'm like,
mm.
yeah, I'm excited. I'm fearful, but fearful of what? Like, what's the risk? Am I gonna die? No. It's so
Thank you,
funny
brain.
how
I'm
we.
not going to die. We're all good. You're right, though. It's that interpretation. But when we're so, like, because it happens so fast, like, it just happens, boom, boom, boom. We don't have a lot of time because it goes straight up to our brain. And our brain goes, something's happened. I've got that file. The file says it's dangerous. So we're going to operate from that mode. But when you have that ability to have some space, you can then have a bit more space to interpret that sensation in a different way, which is what it sounds like you have. And I say to my clients as well, you know what? Sometimes anxiety and fear is a very appropriate response. Like I've had clients that have come to me and like, again, as a psychologist, and they're like, I just want my anxiety to go away. I'm like, well, let's just slow that down just for a moment because the experience that you're telling me right now really sounds like anxiety is actually a pretty normal, healthy response. They look at me and they're like, really? Yeah. Like those pool noodles, in COVID, where people would put pool noodles on their body so that people would stay like that distance away from them. And I mean, you looked at them and you thought they were nuts, right? Like, but in reality, that was kind of an appropriate response to have, although it did look a little bizarre because you were trying to, like, that was anxiety because there was a like legitimate fear that you could die if you did catch COVID. And people mistake that for just kind of, well, they look like they're batshit crazy, but no, they're actually, their body is doing what it needs to do. But when you're pricing your invoices and you're increasing your fees, your body is responding in that same way when it doesn't need to. And like you have beautifully identified, is being able to kind of distinguish that response in your body and be able to go, well, hang on a minute, maybe this is happening. And the interpretation that I have now gets to be a little bit different. Doesn't take away the feeling completely. And I'm going to choose to do something different. And I guess I'm curious, like thinking about your own experience being able to shift your relationship with money, knowing that it is still always an evolution. There's never going to be like, that's it, forever done. What advice would you give to people, to women who are at an earlier stage in their journey, or maybe are just kind of opening up that door and recognizing that there's something that is going on, but they're not quite aware of it? What thoughts do you have for them?
I would say definitely do work on this. So they could work with you. For example, you are a perfect example because what you do and the way you do it is very unique, because then you combine that science with energy work, and it's that
Mm.
somatic work, which I love, because I don't like just science and logical, because my brain is half. So I'm like,
Yeah.
just give me a bit of that. And that's very powerful, because getting to the root cause
Mm,
is the more, like, for me, it was the most powerful and important thing, because once you have the root cause, it's easier to chunk it down and slowly peel off the layers and heal that part. So working with someone like you is crucial, because then it will fast track because you can do your meditations,
Mm.
I don't know, I don't really believe in that. Like I'm a person, I want quick action, I want instant gratification. I know it does not happen, so it's never
I get
instant.
it. Me too.
But I like to fast track, especially now that I know exactly the things that I'm working on. So I'm
Mm.
very focused. I'm like, okay, this, let's clean up, let's clean up, let's clean up. So so I'm very quick to identify where my weaknesses, where the things that I need to work on. But when you're just starting out, having that awareness
Mm.
of where actually the problem is, because money is, for me, it's never about money. It always comes from somewhere deeper. Money
Mm.
issues or money journey, how you have a word for money.
Blocks or money
Yeah,
stories.
money stories, money blocks,
Mm.
they come from somewhere else. So usually when you heal that somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
it will automatically, money is just a consequence of the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually how it will help all other areas, because again, as we were talking at the beginning, when you have that lack scarcity mentality, it
Mm.
will reflect everywhere in your life. And you would not, your standards would be very low on,
Mm-hmm.
your intimate partners, on the circle of friends, because you'll be like, yeah, that's okay, that's good enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it doesn't distinguish. It doesn't like the I'm not good enough doesn't just it doesn't pick and choose which area it goes
No, it's
into.
it's usually it's usually reflected. Like for me, it was reflected in all of my life. So I
And
was
it
very small.
100% it does. It filters across all areas. And I mean that's what I love. Like one of my clients recently has been doing incredible things with their relationship with money, but then they were like, "Oh my gosh, my relationship with my husband has improved tenfold through doing this work." And I smirk and I'm like, mm-hmm, not surprised. But it's that added bonus because they don't understand. And I don't expect them to because I forget what I know. But when you go through that process, the wider implications are just wild. I actually got a message from one of my past clients. We worked together like at the start of 2024, and she messaged me at the start of 2025 and was like, I cannot thank you enough for the work that we did because it just literally changed everything. And that wasn't what it was designed to do per se, like it was money, right? But that's the power of unblocking, and when you can unblock, it just, you become, you have this infinite potential. And I get the chills every single time. I'm like, when will the chills stop for me when I keep seeing my clients have these breakthroughs? Because it just gives me goosebumps every single time. And I love it because I think the more that we can clear our own blocks, and because I think the world and society has really pegged women down to not want to reach our potential. And it sucks that we have to do the work to clear those blocks out. But my gosh, when we do, like, I swear to gosh, we're going to be absolutely unstoppable. And you know, one at a time, one person at a time, that ripple effect will have, like you kind of said before, that
And
kind of compounding effect. And I freaking love that.
yeah, absolutely. It's so powerful because it's yeah, that ripple effect, because it's like you change one person, but then that person not changes, but her
Hmm.
vision and her, like the way she looks at life is a different lens. Like if I'm talking from the photography metaphors, so you
Mm.
just changing the lens and you seeing the wide angle instead of just the very short
Oh, I
focal.
love that.
And everything is just like you create so much extra space because you get rid of those blocks, you clear those blocks, and you create that energy space for new things to come.
It's amazing. And it's so hard to like quantify and to share and to express, because you say, oh, you have so much extra space, but what does that mean? It means that you make more money. It means that life is just easier. It means that you can actually sit down at the dinner table and have dinner with your family without being on your phone checking whether another Stripe notification has come through. And then it does come through and you're disappointed because it's not what you actually wanted to charge in the first place. So that's what clear means. And it's just powerful, and oh, I love it. But I would love for you to tell us how people can find out more about you. I'm going to pop all of your info in the show notes, but tell us where we can find you if people are super curious about the work that you do and want to learn more about you.
The easiest way is probably Google. Ksenia Belova, you Google me and I will come up first. Or you can just dial up, type in Melbourne personal branding photographer, I'll come up first. I'm very proud of being on the first page of Google. And the same, all the socials are there. So it's Ksenia Belova Photography, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. So I'm everywhere. I'm literally everywhere.
Love it. She is everywhere, actually. She's very visible. Love it. And I'll pop those details in, but highly recommend that you do give her a follow, because her photos and the way that she styles her Instagram is amazing. I'm in awe. And you know what I also love? I just want to finish off on this because I absolutely love that you stand in that power and say, you know what, I'm actually really proud that I am first on Google. Like, I think we can find it really hard to celebrate those wins. So I just want to acknowledge, like, and maybe challenge the listeners as well to acknowledge your wins, because we deserve to be able to take up that space and say, I'm fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it took me a lot of time to actually be okay with celebrating myself, because I've always seen it as vanity, as like, no, why should I brag? But
Mm-hmm.
like, why not? I worked like so hard for it. Like, why not? Like, I deserve it. I freaking deserve it.
100%. And that is exactly what comes through clearing those blocks. And it feels easy. So I love that. And thank you for being here and sharing your story and offering your time to really help us understand that it is possible to shift those blocks. So thanks again for being here. And yeah, we'll chat soon.
Thank you.